Hi, Diane. How you doing? You know what? Absolutely, it's my pleasure to give you some feedback here, and thank you for taking me up on my offer of doing so. A few students have done that so far, and it's working out quite well, I do believe. So let's go ahead and take a look. What you've done here, this is called visual substitution, and it falls under the principles and the theories of Gestalt. So it's a very effective technique. Visual substitution is concept heavy, and I think you've done an excellent job here. One of the things that really concerns me a lot is when design students use one object or try to use one letter in multiple words, okay? And I'm talking about the W and the I and the paintbrush acting as both, the W and the I. And I tell you what, I often discourage students from trying to come up with solutions like this because they quite often don't work. In one word, visual substitution works great. So if you could imagine, think of other, like, okay, remember that ad we looked at in class? It was that old bicycle ad. And what they did is they had replaced the O's in the body copy with round bicycle tires. That's visual substitution, okay? And what I'm saying is that if you're only using one word and substituting something for a letter in one word, it's really great. It's a great technique. Two words like this, it's tough. And I got to tell you, you've done a nice job here making this work. So this is fantastic. This is another thing that you've done, very, very smart, is include the different versions, a black and white version and a reversed version. These are called lockups, and this is exactly how it's done, Diane. We don't, as designers, we don't just design a logo and call it a day. It's incumbent upon the designer to inform and educate the client that you're going to need more than one logo. And depending on whatever situations that you have, there could be as many as 3, 4, 5, 6 different versions of logos. So this is very smart, and it's a refreshing to see that you've taken the incentive to mimic a professional designer's workflow by providing these. I was so glad to see these variations. Okay, let's talk about the logo itself. It works. It works. Now listen, I think there's one thing that's not working in the logo. Actually, there's two things. I agree with Scott. I think a sans serif typeface is the way to go. Now, I know it's a traditional company, but we don't want it to appear like an aged company. We want it to appear like a contemporary, even though it's a traditional old historic company. It's still 2020 here, and one of the reasons we rebrand is to give an air of contemporary flair and modern philosophy to the company. Okay, so projecting this company into modern times is something that I think visually is quite effectively done by using a sans serif typeface. I would suggest probably a modern geometric sans. I'll tell you, or one of the grotesque family. Believe it or not, Helvetica would work great in this instance. Gill sans, maybe even Futura, though Futura might be a little sharp in its edges for the W here. So I'm thinking maybe even Helvetica. So try working with a couple of different sans serifs. I think you're going to end up using all caps because of the W in the paintbrush. All right, so try that. That's one. The second thing is watch your kerning. Kerning is the space between letters. We can see some areas where we're a little bit widely spaced, although mainly it's the letters themselves are spaced quite nicely. I think the S can get pulled in a little bit, not much, just a hair closer to the M. And I think this in after W, I-N, sure, looks great. Then we have the W, and then the I-N, this space right here is too great. It almost appears like it says sure in, okay, or sure W in. So that little space right there, we close that down, and this is all going to be perceived as one word. I'm on the fence here. As a matter of fact, I don't think the gradient is working. I think the gradient adds again, it's like it's this technique from years gone by where gradients like this aren't really used that much anymore. They are sometimes, like if you think of Instagram logo, the new Instagram logo, the redesign, there's a gradient in there. I don't think it works. I think that the new Instagram logo is terrible. I think a flat logo is much more effective. So think about a solid color here. All right, let's move to the ad. I think the ad is fantastic. And one thing I think that you guys as a group have learned, and I think that this is quite indicative of that, is that we are in a day and age of conceptual design advertising. And I say that, and I think the best example here is, think about that text-heavy Apple computer ad with Isaac Newton that we talked about way back in week 2 or 3. Remember how text-heavy that was? And some of the ads we've looked at, historic ads, are really text-heavy. And today, we let image do the talking. And we let image set the message, and we let image communicate the idea. And you have nailed that here. You've just nailed it. So concept heavy. We're looking at an app here and color, and I think it's very, very effective. Now, one of the reasons I said before that I think the serif and also the changing the gradient is, take a look at the logo in this ad. And we're not even zoomed out that far. And this is probably would be mimicking something that if the ad were further than an arm's length, but not much. And you can see how this logo is kind of breaking apart a little bit. It's almost illegible and not readable. See that little N? That's what I was talking about. But that definitely looks like the word in. Okay, so I think by using a sans serif, and I think by watching your spacing, I think that is going to rectify that issue. And I think also, just be careful. You'll have to experiment with what colors. I mean, if you want to keep the gradient, please do so. I'm thinking that maybe even a color like this, the red at the bottom of the paintbrush, might be your solution. But experiment with colors. Okay, the ad itself, excellent use of repetition. Boy, this is done great. Purple, purple, purple. And you got it, man. That's how it's done. Beautiful. Okay, I've really only got one suggestion for the ad, and that's this. Oh, nice job with your typography. And I'm wondering why these first letters aren't capitalized. And I'm almost thinking they should be. Now, one thing I would recommend here is right now we're a little bit out of balance. And the reason is because the headline is spanning almost the width of the ad. And you're left aligning, which is great. You've definitely been paying attention. But you've left aligned with the first letter, which is right on top of that margin, which is fine for a headline, but not so much for the body copy. We still want alignment, right? But we want to pull this in a little bit so it's not so far to the left in the score. We're going to redistribute a little bit of weight. My recommendation is to, you could even reduce the size of this type a little bit. Actually, it's fine, but just indent it a little bit. Maybe align it with S. In some. Align it with something. I'm thinking this is a logical spot for it. So the text would reside right here as opposed to pushed over here. That's going to redistribute the balance, and it's going to kind of remove this left heavy balance here caused by this text right here. Okay, other than that, I think you are solid. You've been paying attention, and it's just a breath of fresh air. So thank you very much. At this point, I think the most important thing is to get with me with any questions at all now. It's Thursday. This is the last day of class. I'll be in class most of today answering some last minute things. So if you get this in time and you have any questions before your final submission, please let me know. I'll be glad to address anything. All right. Thank you very much, Diane.